Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 14 of Own the Road with AutoTrader, where we make car stuff simple for Canadians. My name is Jodi, and I'm AutoTrader's editor-in-chief.
And I'm AutoTrader's road test editor, Dan Alika, and we have a special guest with us.
We do. In the studio today is Jennifer Gray. You are an ice racer, correct?
I am, yeah. So, hey, everyone. My name's Jen. I race cars on ice like a crazy person every winter.
I think that is so cool. So for people who don't know, what the heck is ice racing and why do you do it?
Yeah, so my kind of running joke that I tell people when they ask me this question is it's pretty much exactly what it sounds like. We are racing on ice. It's pretty much just drifting the whole way around, but we're also door-to-door racing, anywhere between 15 and 20 cars on track at a time. We run spec Lexus IS300 cars, so we're all the same, minimal adjustments necessary, and yeah, we just go out and have a blast for 6 weekends every winter.
That sounds like so much fun. So I don't have a lot of experience with ice racing. I did one winter driving performance course, and it was so fun. Mostly because I was going so slow, and it's like I always joke that it's the most fun you can have while going that slow, but that's obviously not what you're doing, right?
Right, yeah. So we get some pretty good speed. So we race up in Minden, Ontario, up in kind of cottage country, northern Ontario. We're lucky enough that we have the Great Kinsman Club up in Minden. They plow a track for us and flood it every weekend. So we have super competitive track, wide enough that we can fit even up to 3 cars beside each other at a time. We reverse direction every weekend, so it's kind of always something new. My favorite part actually about it is that you're always changing conditions because the weather's changing, the track's changing. It's never the same lap after lap, so you're constantly having to adapt and change. So I find that that's actually helping my driving even on the normal road, because I'm becoming more of an adaptive driver, more able to predict kind of what's going to happen and what to do in each kind of situation. So not only is it fun, it's also helpful and beneficial to driving skills. So everyone should be doing ice racing.
How did you, so I mean, if we back it up, how did you kind of get started even before ice racing? Obviously, that's not something that you just go, hey, I want to get out on a flooded, parking lot or river or lake, right? So how did you get started in kind of motorsports in general?
Yeah, so actually growing up, I wasn't super into cars. My dad really was, and he always wanted me to get into cars, but I was never super interested until I started driving myself. So 15, 16 hit, I bought my first car, and I was like, oh, this driving thing, this is pretty neat.
Wait, we got to pause. What was your first car?
My first car was a little Mercedes B200 Turbo.
Nice.
Yeah, a little
Sweet.
hatchback.
Sweet.
Yeah, Hatchie was her name.
Nice.
Yeah, I painted her with Plasti Dip. She was super cool.
Sweet.
So I was kind of a crazy driver starting out. I realized that I liked speed and going fast pretty much right off the bat. And since my dad was always a racing fan, we used to go to Canadian Tire Motorsport Park in Bowmanville quite often just to watch the races. And I was like, you know what, like, this is cool. I'd love to do this. But I always thought that racing was like so far out of my league in terms of pricing, and there's no way I could get into it. I was already 18 at this point, and I was like, oh, it's too late. But we ended up wandering down to the go-karting track actually one day while we were there. Met some amazing people. It's a great community, and that's kind of where I started. I realized that it was kind of within reach financially and kind of even with my age. So I did go-karting for a couple years, and from there I actually met someone who was doing ice racing. I had no idea what it was. And they introduced me to Russ Bond. Shout out to Russ. He got me into ice racing further, and Russ has actually been a great mentor to me in general. He's given me lots of opportunities. It's been awesome. So he was running a kind of spec Lexus program at the time. It was the first year, so I kind of got on board right off the bat, which was awesome. That was in 2019. So that was our first season. I rented my first car from another driver who was driving at the time, and then I was like, wow, this is awesome. This is exactly what I want to be doing. I really fell in love with the sport, and the community's great. Everyone's so awesome. So yeah, I've been doing it for 3 years after that. I bought my car in 2020, my current car. It's still my car. My dad and I painted it bright pink. It was awesome.
Nice.
Perfect.
My second year, I kind of actually started to figure out ice racing a lot more. I was lucky enough to kind of get some coaching and lessons from some ice racing veterans, and that really helped. And we're actually allowed passengers, so my dad came with me most of the races. races. So he was learning too and helping me out. And then our third year, which was this past season, we skipped a year for COVID, was kind of when I decided, you know what, I'm kind of grasping the concept. I'm comfortable in the car. I don't feel like I'm out of control the whole time now. So I went for it, and lucky enough, I won the championship. So that was kind of where we're at now. And
That's
my dad's now
amazing.
racing with me too, which is
that's
awesome.
super
So,
cool.
Well, congratulations
Thank
on
you
your
so
first
much.
championship.
Thanks.
That's
Yes,
major.
I know. It was awesome. It was a tough year. We had some good competition, but great guys as always. It's always fun racing with everyone. Everyone's super respectful. And even though it's competitive, it's lighthearted and everyone's coming off laughing and having a good time. So that's the best part of it for sure.
That's
Fun-
perfect.
Fun fact, probably like 5 years ago, Russ and I, so we used to work together on Motoring TV.
Yeah.
And we were in Gimli, Manitoba for the AMG Winter Sporting Academy.
Okay, yep.
And they had this like figure eight. And it was like a contest, and we weren't like, wheel to wheel, but it was, but we were, it was timed lap sessions. And I came so close to beating Russ. And Russ said to me, and I don't know if you admit this after the fact, but he was like, I was actually nervous.
That you would beat him?
And yeah, we were in C63
Oh, that's so cool.
S's, so it was like 650 horsepower to the rear wheels. It was
Yeah.
like absolutely silly. And I came this close, and it was the only time on one of those programs that I ever was like crushed that I didn't win, because it's
Yeah.
like, I've known Russ for years and worked with him for so long. Anyways, that's my ice racing story.
It would have been
That's
fun
awesome.
to beat him because he has so much more experience
Yeah,
doing it, right?
That, AKA he's old.
Burn.
That's awesome. You gotta never let him live that down. That
Never.
You almost beat
I
him.
know,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's
Yeah.
hilarious.
That is.
So, like, what was your first time ice racing like? Like, you obviously fell in love with it right away, but, like, what did you feel when you were behind the wheel, like, going around in circles?
Yeah, so obviously most normal people don't know what it's like to slide a car, don't know the feeling. So same goes for me. I had no idea what it was going to be like. And speaking of Russ, he there's a practice session before the races start, and he goes, no, you guys, you don't need to go for practice. Don't do that. It's a waste of time. Just go right into the race. So I'm like, all
Wow.
right, like, so
That's aggressive.
We go right into the race. And I still remember the first weekend. The weather was really bad, so it was like the worst possible first race that I could have had. But it gave me good experience, so it was good in the long run. But I just remember like the concept of kind of the slide and then catching it before you kind of keep going is basically the hardest kind of concept that it is for people to grasp. But my dad, he'd never raced before, but he has a lot more driving experience than me, obviously, and did a lot of equally stupid things when he was younger. So he kind of taught me, like that point of where it's going to snap and when you have to catch it. And basically, once you understand that, it's super easy to keep the car in control. And at that point, it's just steering with your foot almost with the throttle, which is also what he taught me. So that was kind of my first experience. The only time that I had before the race, we were just in the parking lot. I was just doing donuts to kind of figure out the car. But other than that, yeah, we just went right into the deep end. And I just remember thinking it was so fun. And yeah, it was just a great learning experience. And everything from there, it's just been, I still am learning. It's only my going into my fourth year now. So there's still lots to learn. There's guys there that have been doing it for like 20, 30 years. So lots to learn from them. I always go bother them and ask them for advice and tips. And yeah, so it's awesome. And super thankful for all the guys that helped me as well.
That's cool.
Yeah, I find it's like very much like a metronome, and once you figure out
Yes.
that kind of like rhythm,
Exactly.
that's, and sometimes it works really well, but conditions play such a factor too that
Yep.
you just like, it's harder to kind of catch that.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's kind of like, I think like the one secret like is
It
just
is.
getting that kind of feel
Yep.
for it, and once you can kind of master that, it makes it at least a lot more like predictable when you're out there.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. So like I said, even up until this year, I always kind of felt like I was a bit out of control and I wasn't 100% sure what the car was going to do. But this year, I felt like I could push the car super hard without being out of control, and I kind of knew what it was going to do, and it was becoming a lot more predictable. So that just comes with experience and practice. And then obviously, yeah, there's unforeseen conditions like track conditions, or if there's a car in the way, you can't always keep that rhythm. But especially when you're on track alone, you can have a lot of fun, which I did in the last race. I'd already won the championship, so I started at the back and was just sliding around the whole thing, and it was super fun. But yeah.
That's so fun. Like, what's going through your mind when you're in like the middle of a race and like the conditions are crazy? Like, what are you thinking of?
I'm always thinking ahead. So that's kind of like the biggest tip that I have have, even for just driving in general. Think ahead and look ahead, keep your vision far ahead. I'm kind of thinking of where everyone's at, what the track is doing. I'm actually looking at the track. So one of the ice racing veterans, Scott, he taught me to kind of look for the shiny versus like the more dull patches of track. So anything that's kind of covered with snow is a little bit more grippy than the obviously slippery, icy parts. So I'm looking for that. Obviously keeping in mind who's behind me, who's in front of me. Now that I know everyone and I kind of know driving styles, it's a little bit more predictable. I can set things up almost like 3-4 corners in advance when I see that I'm coming up to someone. So other than that, I'm just having fun and have my music on. Usually we have radio still in the car.
Nice.
So yeah, just pretty much having a blast. Yeah.
That's cool. What's your hype music? Like, what do you play?
Oh my gosh. So honestly, my car, the first couple of years, it was letting me burn CDs and play it in the car. But now for some reason, my CDs don't work. So I went to like Value Village or something in Minden or close by this past year and got like 70s and 80s like greatest hits CDs, and I'm just jamming out to like Eye of the Tiger and just blasting
It's just
it
more
all.
stuff for you to talk with Russ about. So you guys share in common, right?
Exactly. So and
This is from your
ironically,
era,
actually,
right?
the guy that I bought my current ice racer from, Scott, who's also taught me a lot, he left a bunch of CDs in the car as well. So it's all just like old Canadian music and bluegrass stuff. I'm
Nice.
just sitting there jamming out, on the
Nice.
grid, and
That's so
it's awesome.
fun.
Yeah, it's great.
I assume there aren't a lot of women in ice racing. Is that true, or am I just like crazy?
Yeah, we're getting more into it with women, and honestly, like I love to see more women getting into it. I'm trying to think in the full. This past year in my class, there was no other women, but in the whole series in general, we have about 12 different classes. There's probably maybe 4 or 5 women compared to like 90 men. So
Wow.
yeah, it's good though. I've seen more young women get into it, so it's awesome to see, because I find that people think that there's like a huge difference when it comes to like male-dominated sports and women in male-dominated sports. But honestly, once we all get in the cars, it's a level playing field. It's all the same. We're all racing just as hard, and everyone's given me a ton of respect. So that's awesome. As a woman in the sport, I've never had an issue with anyone with that. So yeah, if any women want to get involved, let me know, because I'd love to help.
Why
people
don't you
get into it.
shout out your Instagram or whatever, people can look you up. So
Yeah,
that,
of course. So if anyone wants to get into ice racing or racing in general, just has general questions for me, my Instagram is Jen Gray with 2 underscores at the end. So yeah, reach out to me. I'd love to get anyone into it. Even if you just want to kind of refine your driving skills, I do coaching as well. So yeah, hit me up, and I'd love to get anyone who wants to get into it. I do have rental cars as well available this year. So yeah, let me know.
Very cool. And so, you talked a little bit about how that racing experience has translated onto the road.
Mm-hmm.
That's obviously something, across Canada, wintertime comes. It seems like, every November, everyone forgets what it's like
Yes.
to drive in the wintertime.
I know.
So what kind of like tips can you share that maybe you helped, refine on the ice racing circuit that you've been able to bring onto the road?
Yeah, definitely. So kind of my biggest tip, like I was saying earlier, keep looking ahead, always think ahead. And kind of the other main tip that I have for people is target fixation. So this is something that not a lot of people think about, but everyone does it, including myself. So if you're in a situation where you're sliding or skidding, a lot of people tend to look at the thing that they're trying to avoid. So they're looking at the guardrail, they're looking at another car, and they're panicking. They're thinking, oh, I can't hit this, but it's actually the opposite. So by nature, if we're looking at something, our hands and our body are going to go towards it. So if you're in a car and you're starting to slide and you're looking at the wall, you're going to go right into it. So try not to target fixate. Look where you want to go, not where you don't want to go, because ultimately where you're looking is where you're going to go. So keep looking ahead, and that's pretty much what's helped me. The few times that I've got stuck in the snowbanks and hit other cars in ice racing is when I'm looking at it, because I'm like, oh, I can't hit this, but you go right into it most times. So,
yeah, it's crazy how like not intuitive that is.
Yeah,
right?
I know.
I remember when I was learning how to ride a motorcycle, and I had a tendency to keep looking at the handlebars,
Yes.
and that was like the worst thing to do.
Yep.
But the moment I looked up and looked further down the road, it like something like a light bulb went off. And I was like,
Yes.
oh, I understand this now.
Yes, same goes for even when you're driving. A lot of people look right at the car in front of them and not at anything else. But what you actually want to do is look more at the horizon, and your peripheral will pick up if the car in front of you is braking or someone's lane changing. If you're just fixated solely on the car in front of you, you're probably not going to see even anything else or anything that happens far ahead. So that's pretty much the biggest kind of thing that I've learned. And otherwise, it's kind of just getting out and getting the experience. My biggest recommendation for people would be to go find whatever local kind of winter driving school you have. We do offer one up in Midden as well, if anyone wants more info on that. But kind of just doing it and feeling what it's like to slide a car is going to be your biggest kind of helpful factor. Because like I said earlier, pretty much no one really knows what it feels like until they do it, and usually at that point it's like an emergency
It's too late.
situation.
Yeah.
So might as well do it before. I feel a lot more confident now that I know what the car is going to do if it starts sliding on the road. So yeah, just get out and do it under safe circumstances, of course. But
I also
yeah.
find like ice racing is that great example of the fact that people overvalue all-wheel drive, right?
Yes, yes.
And nowhere does that kind of, there's no bigger case in point than on the ice when you're driving
Yeah.
a rear-wheel drive car.
Yes.
That, it's not about, like, traction and grip are so different, and
Yeah.
it doesn't matter how many wheels you're driving,
Nope.
car control. It's completely different than where the power's going, right?
Yeah, like exactly. So in an all-wheel drive car, yes, you have all four wheels like powered and driving, but like I say, it's all-wheel drive, not all-wheel stop. So when you're trying to stop, everything's the same at that point, and it's giving the car more power is really not gonna do much, depending on like what drivetrain you're on. But other than that, yeah, like people get, I think, overconfident if they think they have like a big truck with four-wheel drive or whatever, but ultimately it's going to slide the exact same as like a little Corolla would once you hit black ice. So.
Hey, Joseph, a little Corolla. Joseph owns a Corolla with like 300,000 miles on it.
Oh,
And
nice.
it's
That's
like,
the best kind of Corolla.
yeah, it's amazing.
Those cars will never die on
Yeah,
you.
They
absolutely.
won't.
Yeah.
No, we have some Corollas in ice racing. That's like a popular front-wheel drive
Yeah.
ice racer. Yeah, yeah, it's awesome.
Parts are a dime a dozen. That's the nice thing, right? It's like,
Yeah.
and I think that kind of, you can kind of break down that, you were talking earlier about affordability, right? And that stigma around racing, that
Yes.
spec series, they're really good because it doesn't cost a lot to upfit the vehicle. And then
Definitely.
also that inevitably, when you, run into the guy beside you or whatever the case may be, it's a lot more affordable to replace those parts as the season
Definitely.
progresses.
Yeah, like we run pretty cheap cars. My cars were all, like under $2,000 to buy. A lot of people pick up ice racers for $500. They're really easy to kind of prepare for ice racing. All you need to do is take out any kind of glass pieces other than the windows, like headlights and taillights, put a little number board on the top of your car, and you're pretty much good to go. We don't do like any engine modifications. Honestly, even more power can kind of hurt you in ice racing. My car last year was running down a cylinder for the whole season. It sounded like a diesel. It was
On
hilarious.
purpose or
No,
just by
no,
mistake?
It just
was,
went and you were like, it still runs.
yeah,
it's fine.
so I didn't even really know because the engine lights are on in all of our cars anyway. So
Yeah.
I didn't know what the issue was. We kind of figured out that it was and it ended up it was sucking in water and then freezing in the anyways. Someone brought a scanner to the track and it had something like 16 engine codes or so. There's
That person would probably be the most popular, It's like, come scan mine, like
come
hook up
see.
that OBD2
Yeah.
sensor, like
Honestly,
yeah.
so I was running like there was every cylinder misfire codes but it actually I think helped me because I was running down on power, so I wasn't spinning the tires as much and I was kind
For
of just
sure,
coasting
yeah.
around, and everyone's like, how are you just driving around us? I'm like, you guys are, even my dad will admit to, he's just gets too excited and they think that they'll go faster the more gas they give it, but it's actually the opposite. I'm like, calm it down.
Yeah.
I'm like on the days where it's really cold and the ice is really hard and slippery, like 10% throttle. Like I'm barely touching. I'm just driving around everyone and they're all confused. I'm like, guys, calm it down and you'll be good.
It was the same thing like growing up playing baseball, and the harder you try to throw as a pitcher,
Yeah.
like the slower the ball is actually
Yeah.
moving. And it's the same thing, on the ice. Like you need to slow it down and just kind of like focus on the mechanics of the
Yes.
vehicle and that
Exactly.
movement, and it'll totally like unlock that next level of speed, outright speed around the course,
Yes.
right?
Yeah,
Yep.
I often tell people that if you're good at driving in the winter, or like if you can drive fast on the snow, then you're automatically going to be a better driver when the weather
Yes,
is great.
For sure. Yep. If you can drive in the worst weather, then you can definitely drive in the best weather. Yeah, for sure.
So, like, what's the craziest thing that's ever happened to you during a race?
Oh, that's a good question. Actually, it might have been actually my first weekend. It was super bad weather. And I was thinking the whole time, this was probably like my third or fourth race. But yeah, first weekend, this was actually my only like major crash as well. So luckily, knock on wood. But yeah, so we're coming around every lap down the straight and it's like whiteout conditions. Like I can't see anything. Neither can anyone else apparently. But so I'm thinking every time in my head, like, oh my God, like if there's someone stopped ahead of me, I'm not going to be able to see them. And I'm like, well, whatever. Like I'm going to keep into it. Got to keep racing. So I'm going around and I swear the next lap, right after I thought that, I'm going down the straight and we're right at the end where I'm probably going about like 90 kilometers an hour. And suddenly, yep, car stopped right in front of me. So I'm like, maybe even like this far apart from the car, I can just see his taillights and I start to kind of steer, but we're on ice and I'm going fast. So there's like no avoiding it. I end up hitting him. And it turns out there was like 2 other cars that had spun first and then we all kind of just started to pile up.
Oh, no.
Luckily, no one was hurt. My car was pretty banged up. That was like, yeah, my first repair bill. Good start to ice racing, but luckily nothing that bad has happened after that. But it's kind of just funny to me now that I feel like I manifested that actually because I was thinking about it so much. I'm like, what if someone stopped? I'm not gonna
Right.
see them, and then turns out it happened.
Because I guess
Yeah.
you're always thinking like, oh no, I don't want to crash. I don't want to crash.
Yeah.
But like, don't focus on that.
Exactly.
Focus
Yeah.
on what's going right, I guess.
Yes. So luckily nothing too crazy after that. But yeah, that's probably my kind of craziest and biggest like crash story. Otherwise, yeah, I'm trying to think if everything's pretty predictable. Another fun story I have was this past year. My dad, it was one of the first weekends as well. He actually was in the lead of a race. We do randomly generated grids for the first race of every weekend. So he ended up starting in first, and I was starting at the back for some reason with another competitor who we were kind of like neck and neck. So we were having a really good race actually. And my dad's in the lead, so he's super excited. So it takes me and this other guy quite a few laps to kind of make it through everyone else. So we finally get up to my dad. So he's in first, and I think I'm second, and the other guy's third. And he's actually, I think, running a bit faster than me behind me. So I'm trying to hold him off. And he's faster, mostly in this one corner on the track. He's faster than me, I can tell. So I'm thinking, oh, this is where he's going to pass me. So I'm trying to block. And it's coming down to like the last few laps. And my dad's still in the lead. And I'm like, you know what? I got to try and like hold this guy off so my dad can win. And so I can like get second. And then like, yeah, one of the last couple laps, my dad spins and puts it right in the snowbank, right where this guy's trying to pass me, which ended up helping me. I won the race because every time he went to pass me, my dad's sitting there in the snowbank, so he couldn't.
That's
So we
funny.
come out. I'm like, you know what, Dad? At least you helped me win because he couldn't pass me there.
Yeah, I
but-
mean, he didn't win,
yeah.
but the second best thing is that you won.
Yes, no, my dad picked up. He didn't get any wins this year, but he's gonna give me a run for my money next year for sure. He got second to me in the championship this year, so
Nice.
yeah, he's
So
coming for
fun.
me.
You compete against your dad?
Yeah, I do.
That's
so I
so
finally
funny.
convinced him to do it because he's been riding passenger with me for the last for the first 2 years. So I'm like, you know what, like we got to get you into it. And he's a bit older, so he's like, I can't do it. Like the races are pretty long. He's like, I'm not going to be able to race for that long. I'm like, come on, just try it. Like
You're
I
like,
bought
if
him.
Russ can do it, you can do it, Dad.
Exactly. So funny enough, Russ actually gave my dad his number. So my dad's number 55, which
Nice.
was Russ's number, which
Yeah.
is also my dad's birth year. So
Cool.
yeah, he got the iconic Russ Bond number. So
Nice.
we told him that gave him some extra luck. But
That's fun.
yeah, so I convinced him to do it. We came off after the first race, and I'm like, oh, how was it? Are you tired? Like he's like, no, it went by so quick. I could have kept going. So of course, I knew he was gonna love it.
And now
so.
he's addicted.
Yes, he
Just
is.
like you are.
He is, yeah. So we're all gonna have matching cars this year, and I convinced
Nice.
him to run a pink car with me
That's
again this
sweet.
year. So
That's so fun.
yeah.
But again, you know, in kind of like a different way, like obviously you're kind of leading the way that, you know, especially younger women that might see you out there and say, hey, like I'm going to give it a shot. But it's also cool that your dad can do that and
Yes.
and you know, be that kind of ally that it's like, look, man, there's nothing wrong with driving a pink car.
Yeah.
And like it's a father-daughter experience. And, you know, it's really great to see you guys have that, connection out on the track and be
It
kind
is.
of ambassadors for. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's awesome. We have a great time getting all the cars ready, and yeah, he loves it. I even asked him last weekend. We were getting ready to paint the cars. We're not doing fully pink, but it's a surprise. There will be pink involved. But I said, like, are you sure you don't mind? Like, we can do something else. Like, you can run a different color. He's like, no, like, that's awesome. So yeah, he loves it. And my two other rental cars that I'm kind of running a program with this year as well are going to be the same. So
That's
all 4
awesome.
cars are going to match, and yeah, it's going to be super cool.
Do you
Very
guys
cool.
get super competitive with each other, or it's more like a collaboration? Like,
It's kind of like both. So we do get competitive, but we made an agreement at the beginning of the year that neither of us are gonna like let each other win. I know I joked
Good.
about that earlier, but no, I told him, like, if you can pass me, like, go for it. And same
Yeah.
with me, like, we're not letting each other through. But it's nice to have him out there. I wish that it would be so funny if we could somehow like talk to each other. We're trying to figure out a way that we could like put it on the radio or
Like a
something.
Just get like a little
walkie-talkie?
Bluetooth headset.
Yeah, maybe
so you
we
guys
could
can
do
just,
that.
like,
Yeah,
chat.
just chat. Like, it's
Yeah.
funny because I miss like having him in the car with me, because normally we can run passengers. This year, I think COVID restrictions will be lifted. So yeah, we can run passengers again. So yeah, if anyone wants to come run passenger with me, if you're
But that would also be a great way that if people that are kind of
Yes.
like curious but they're not sure, and even though it's affordable, like they don't really want to commit.
Yeah.
Come for a ride.
Definitely.
Kind of see what it's all about and see if it's
Yeah.
something that they're interested in. Maybe you can get
Exactly.
Jodi out there with you.
Yeah.
I would
come on
actually
down.
love to.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
just gonna be like the whole time.
It's not as scary as you'd think, actually. We're going fast, but not fast enough that you're like, oh my God, like, scary. But yeah, we have a great amount of spectators that come out and young fans. And since I always have the bright like colors and stuff on my car, I even met a family this year, a mother and son he was probably about 4 or 5, and I stay connected with them on Facebook, but I have the cutest little picture of him, like, he's waving at me on the track, and it's just awesome when all the kids come over and think it's super cool and get chatting to everyone. And yeah, people don't realize how easy it is to get into it, so I kind of just tell them, like, yeah, if you want any help, like, I'm here to help, and I'd love to see more people into the sport. That's kind of what I'm trying to focus on this year with the 2 rental cars that I picked up. I'm trying to kind of just bring more people into it in general. And even if you don't want to run the Lexus class or run in my cars, anyone can pretty much just bring whatever car they want, and yeah, just come have fun with us.
Sweet. I did also remember one other Russ Bond story.
Yeah.
So when we were at that Winter Sporting Academy, they have this, it's, whatever, we're there for 3 days, and they have this G-Wagon lurking around that, like, if you, stuff it into a snowbank
Yeah.
and they come pull you out, and they keep a tally of who bins it the most times, and they have a golden tow hook as
yeah.
and Russ very reluctantly accepted his award for the most recoveries. He was not
Proud of him.
happy about it, but
I mean,
course
I
not.
think part of that is because he goes so hard, right? Like,
yeah, he does. Yeah.
There's no like in between with Russ. Like, he's always going for it. He's
Yeah.
always crazy. There's no like holding back for him. It's on or off. There's nothing else.
Yeah, but that's probably why he told everyone, "Oh, you don't need that practice session, right? Because it's a little leg up for him.
Yeah,
he
there you
can't.
go.
Those competitive juices are always
No.
flowing.
And he jumps every start. So we do
Yeah.
standing starts, and this is like our running joke with Russ too, and I love it. He comes up to me after, he's like, Jen, you gotta jump the start. What are you doing? Don't wait for him. If he just starts to twitch his hand and drop the green flag, like, you go. And he gets away with it, which is the awesome part.
But
Love
it's
it.
funny because Russ, like, through all that, over those years of racing, like those little tips and
Yeah.
stuff, like, he knows how to kind of like play
He does.
inside the rules.
Oh, yeah,
that
it's awesome.
it's like, hey, a little competitive advantage, right?
Yep.
So he's a good guy to kind of
Yeah, he's taught me so much. It's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us
You're
today, Jen.
welcome.
This was
Yeah,
such a
thanks for
fun
having me.
chat. For those of you listening, we're going to have Jen back on a future episode. She's going to share some winter driving tips for you all because winter is coming.
Yes.
Unfortunately.
It is.
But till next time, thank you for joining us on Own the Road with AutoTrader.
Thank you.